So now we're going to look at some arguments that capture the spirit of a metaphysical determinist. Whenever I say metaphysical determinist, remember you're thinking of those who believe in the universal causation. So let's go ahead and use our intellectual empathy. Remember, intellectual empathy is being manifested when we try to put our own views or positions on hold and enter into another's point of view. Even if it is just like our point of view, we're still trying to make sure we understand it in terms of how they present it. So we'll be using, of course, intellectual empathy to do that with the argument, because we want to see how someone who is a metaphysical determinist might get to their conclusion that everything is caused, or that when they say everything, this includes other things that some people think are not caused. And so let's go ahead and look at some metaphysical determinist reasoning here. I encourage you, as I have in the other skill building videos, to try the argument on your own and then to check the answer. But keep in mind that this isn't just a technical exercise. I'm trying to show you how a metaphysical determinist might try to convince you of something. You'll notice that the thesis of universal causation is in it. So bracket and number the statements, as I've shown you in the other videos during week 3. How about if this time, just for fun, you circle which statement in this argument is presenting some version of the universal thesis of universal causation within this metaphysical determinist reasoning. Then when you're done that, you might want to check your bracketing and your numbering, and then try reformatting and employing uniform language. One thing that should stick out to you right now is that this says simple argument, and this says, down here, it says complex argument. Now, when I say simple argument, you should already know what I'm referring to. So I'm not going to do another lesson on simple argument, but if you know the definition for simple argument, then you know exactly how many conclusions you should find. So that always helps you. So I'm going to go ahead and start, and I'm going to assume at this point that you've tried to do it on your own and that you're ready to see how you did and learn from your mistakes. So I have statement 1. Every event without exception is causally determined by prior events. Human mental states, choices, and actions are events. Therefore, all of these things are causally determined. Did you get 3 statements? If you did, good job. All right, so something that really sticks out to me is the word therefore, which typically functions as a conclusion indicator. I know I'm looking for 2 different kinds of statements given the definition for argument. I've got my conclusion. I know that this is an argument, so it must have at least one premise somewhere. And I know I'm not going to find another conclusion because it's a simple argument. The only way a simple argument might have 2 statements functioning as a conclusion is because, remember what I said in a previous lecture, sometimes a conclusion is repeated, but in different words. So by process of elimination, and when I use my college level reading skills and look at how these statements might be used to get to that conclusion, I'm going to go ahead and write P here and P here. So again, I'm using intellectual empathy because I'm trying to figure out, where is this person coming from? What reasons are he giving for me? What reasons is the person giving me for thinking this is true? The person obviously, or the speaker, the writer, wants me to think that statement 3 is true. They say therefore, and it seems like, yeah, this is the reasoning. And so if you can see this and you do this, then you are manifesting intellectual empathy. But especially if you believe the opposite or completely disagree, you're expressing it even more. All right, so now we're going to employ uniform language and reformat. So start with P1. You don't, okay, cross out uniform, cross-access verbiage. You don't have to have without exception. That's just iterating what they mean by every event. Okay, it's causally determined by prior events. Okay, this is the only word that you would take out. You want to leave the word all in there. It's an important quantifier. It gives you the scope. And it's saying not just things, because if you just said there are things that are caused, that could be some things, a few things, a million things. So you got to leave the word all in this case of this argument. So premise 1, every event is causally determined by prior events. Premise 2, which just so happens to be statement 2, says human mental states choices and actions are events. Conclusion. Remember, you don't number those. I saw that some people, when they reformatted their original argument to the prompt about a sacrifice and free will, there's more than one conclusion. Some of you numbered that. And in the instructional videos, I iterated so strongly that you still don't number conclusions in a complex argument, but some of you did that anyway, so be careful. Not everyone did that who had a complex argument. All right, and then conclusion is, okay, it says these things are causally determined. So what are they referring to when they're talking about these things? Well, they already said that human mental states, choices, and actions are events. Okay, everything is causally determined. So it must be this right here. That is what they mean by these things. So human mental states, choices, and actions are determined. So every event. So what I'd like to do now is we're going to put triangles over words that name fundamental, powerful concepts in this metaphysical reasoning here. So event turns out to be a really important word when you're doing metaphysics, especially when you're talking about free will. Obviously causally determined. And then you've got this notion of a prior event. Human mental states, so here the words mental states name a fundamental, powerful concept. Choices and actions are what? Events. Okay. So you can see how, here it's talking about events, right? And events are causally determined by prior ones. And then here they're giving you a subcategory of events. And a subcategory of things that is, are, or will be. And they're saying that these count as events, human mental states themselves. So you can see there's a logic forming. Then you've got mental states again, choices, and actions are determined. So all of these words in red highlight the fact that there's a major metaphysical discussion going on. Okay, so hopefully you got that. What would the diagram look like? If you want to give it a stab, you can. I'm going to do the pattern first and then the diagram. So the pattern would be P-C, one or more premises. We don't do two P's when they're right next to each other. This means at least one, so that's the pattern. And the diagram would be S1, a premise, works together jointly with S2, another premise, to advance yet another statement, S3, a conclusion.